But oh my goodness, with the freezing, it's just a mess.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there,
Everything
I can see it. Yeah.
It's getting real soft in some spots. Oh, yeah. It does it every year, you know, same thing.
This is just personal.
Okay.
Asphalt. It's paved.
Yeah. You want to repave it? Or
I know,
just seal
yeah.
it?
Which you don't do this, the arm and the leg.
The ceiling, it's just like a tar spray. And a lot of times, no, it's not good.
Well, believe it, look, I'll show you. In fact, I took this picture.
So what's wrong with it?
There's cracks.
Oh.
There's cracks. Here, there's our house. Our driveway starts right about here, and see, it's just flat. It's paved
Okay.
flat to there.
I don't know if them just spraying the ceiling on top is gonna help the crack stuff. Man. Asphalt.
Well, the new group, Dave submitted the policy, there's flat map showing to be right away. Yeah, the area will be the same.
Anyway.
It's the natural ones that are gonna change. That's why the new right away.
It was 25.
No, that's all.
Oh.
Yeah, yeah, we better jump on that.
Okay, all right. Well,
I'll tell
maybe-
you, my daughter's in-laws, she lives in Texas and they own
Yeah.
a really large paving company there.
Oh,
Asphalt in Texas is $55 a ton.
yeah.
Yes, buddy.
Okay.
No cheese. Order me a cheesecake, please.
And throw in the cheesecake too. Yep. Okay, and you gonna pay cash or you wanna leave a credit card? Card. Okay, let me go bring this up.
Are we ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Don, I'll let you start us off.
Start.
Yeah.
So, First item on the agenda is in regards to our proposed Jackson County Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy. And having said that, I will turn the meeting over to Mr. Brown.
Very good. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. Commissioners, thank you for a few minutes of your time today. This process with the revision to the SEDS was scheduled, it was originally slated to begin back in early 2020, but obviously because of COVID, we had to wait out until we could figure out how we could do this exercise virtually and make sure we get the appropriate input. So we started this in earnest with our partners at Withers Ravenel back in August and September. And we have purposely moved through this planning process with basically 3 pillars in mind. Number one, the original SEDS, as we use the acronym for Comprehensive Economic Development Strategy, which was adopted back in 2012. And that was actually prior to my appointment to this role later on in 2013. The Jackson County Land Use Plan for 2040, which was our comprehensive planning process that was completed back in 2017, led by Gerald Green and then finished up by my colleague Mike Poston. And then numerous public and stakeholder input sessions that you'll hear about as we go through today's presentation. Our Business and Industry Committee, Mr. Adams and I sat down early on and agreed that Business and Industry would have oversight of the project. So they have been heavily involved throughout this process. And I come to you today not only on behalf of my office, but certainly that committee with their unanimous and full recommendation for adoption of this plan as it's presented to you today. These plans are very fluid. As I said, we're going back to 2012. So I would say to you that we're probably a little bit overdue in getting this plan updated. Typically, you would hear that these plans are sort of valid for 5 to 7 years. But I would also caution that economic development and economic condition is very fluid and rapidly changing and evolving. And so having your eyes on this plan certainly as a guiding document, but creating a plan that is it's subjective to where you can make changes and additions and vary your focus, certainly needs to be looked at often and revised whenever this body and others working in economic development agree that it needs to be done. You guys, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Adams provided you with copies prior to today so that you could potentially start to look at that. I need to make you aware of the fact that we have made some, what I believe are very minor changes to a portion of this document that you're going to see and hear about today. And they're relevant strictly to the section of goal number 1, which is referencing tourism. I had provided our TDA and our TDA director, Nick Breedlove, as a professional courtesy, with a copy of this plan middle of last week. The purpose for providing them that was so they could use the document for a subcommittee of theirs for future reference. Mr. Breedlove and Chairman Robert Jumper got back to me. They had some pretty significant concerns about the way that section was laid out and the way it referenced goals and objectives. And I want to remind this group that what we did is we went back to that comprehensive plan from 2017. And in that economic development section, you'll see a lot of cross-referencing between tourism development, and economic development. And as we laid out various objectives and action items back in 2017, if you pay real close attention, you'll see that some of those action items are sort of assigned to economic development. Some of them are assigned to the Tourism Development Authority with economic development as a partner and vice versa. So as we put this document together, we regurgitated basically a lot of the stuff that was in that 2017 plan. And I think Mr. Breedlove and Mr. Jumper were concerned that the document gave the appearance of maybe that economic development had a little bit too much input in strategic plans as developed by the TDA. And so what we agreed to do is we went back and revised this one section, basically to demonstrate the significance of the relationship between economic development and tourism development certainly is a critical component of our ongoing concern in economic development. So we've made a few revisions just in the narrative. We made a few revisions in the action items, and we've had that looked at by business and industry. With Mr. Breedlove and Mr. Jumper also gave their blessing, and so we're here today with what we think is a final presentation for your consideration. I want to introduce, and I want to make sure I can see my colleagues, our colleagues, I should say. First of all, Jessica Martin Lane. Jessica is the Chief Strategy and Marketing Officer for Withers Ravenel, and her office is based out of Asheville. And I'll let her say a couple of words in a moment. And also with her, some of you will recognize Dr. Arthur Solito. Arthur is now working with Withers Ravenel as a consultant. He is their Director of Business Strategy and Economic Development. Both of these individuals, along with others with Withers Ravenel, have been very instrumental in the final project and the final documents that you are going to see here today. So without further ado, Jessica, I'll turn it over to you for a couple of moments if you'd like.
Thanks, Rich. I am excited to be here today with everyone, and just want to say thank you to you, Rich, and to all of the leaders there at the county for allowing us to engage with the county and work on this important strategic initiative. It was a good process. We had to take some changes and tweaks to our normal process, given that we're living in the times of COVID, but I still feel like we had great input and output from the process. So thank you all for giving us the opportunity to serve the county. And that's it for me. Rich, back over to you.
Very good. So Arthur, I'm coming to you next, my friend, to let you kick this off. We'll do this a little bit old school. If you'll just say next slide when you want us to, we'll move forward for the commissioner's benefit.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you all. And it's very nice to be back, even if it's virtually, with Jackson County. I guess you can go to that first slide, the next slide. Yeah, there you go. So I just want to, like Jessica said, thank you for allowing Withers Ravenel to work on this project. Personally, this has been meaningful for me because I spent about 17 years working at Western Carolina University. So I created a lot of strong relationships in Jackson County. I probably know more about Jackson County than I know of anything else, and I'm proud of that. So I consider it my second home, and this is a pleasure digging a little deeper and learning a little bit more about the county and the culture than I did previously. So thank you. Next slide. So we looked at the county's mission and vision statements for economic development, and we summed them up this way: that Jackson County's purpose in seeking an updated comprehensive economic development strategy is to continue to improve the quality of life for its citizens by building a robust and healthy economy that is both diversified and sustainable. So next slide. And this SEDS represents the combination of a lot of inputs. We had research, we had conversations with stakeholders and leaders, we collected data in person and electronically, and then we derived a lot of information from strategies that have been previously developed by Jackson County, the Southwestern Commission Regional Council of Government, and then other municipalities and communities throughout Jackson County and Region A. So there was a lot of information going into this report. So next slide. And then in terms of oversight, approximately 30 business, government, regional, and state leaders were chosen by Mr. Rich Price of the Office of Economic Development to assist us in generating the feedback and the advice throughout the whole planning process. And then we're also grateful to the Business and Industry Advisory Council for their oversight as well. Next slide. Some of the highlights, the project kicked off on August 4th of 2020. We helped Jackson County with organizing and convening a project oversight group, which was composed of Withers Ravenel team members and then stakeholders that Rich Price identified. And that group oversaw the progress and helped with communication throughout the whole project. We developed concise objectives, we defined our milestones, and we put together a final project schedule. And then throughout the project, we conducted various sessions with Rich Price to review project drafts, look at our assumptions, look at the processes, and then we gathered a lot of extra data and information. We met with focus groups. We were able to do a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. We also did a gap analysis. Then we met with the Business and Industry Advisory Council in December, early December. And then we had our preliminary review last Tuesday of February 2nd. And we submitted our rough draft back on December 10th of 2020. And we met with Rich for his preliminary thoughts on that on December 14th for feedback. Next slide. So because we had to pivot to virtual meetings, we were able to utilize a neat tool to engage stakeholders. And I realize you can't read this slide, but the comments have been transcribed in the report. So this is a screenshot of a virtual SWOT analysis where participants were able to post virtual sticky notes and then make comments. They could even like other notes from other folks. So we had a surprising amount of engagement with this tool, and we had a similar one for a gap analysis as well. Next slide. In addition to all of that, we did collect a good amount of research, and I won't cover all of it, but it's in the report. We really wanted to focus on action items, and the planning section, which follows that, has all good reference material. Some examples of research information that we did collect. I don't think it would surprise you. So affordable housing is important in the county. 52% of renters and 21% of homeowners in Jackson County have difficulty affording housing. The population's increasing, but it's also aging. And then the industry mix. Government is the largest employer, accommodation and food services, healthcare, and then retail trade are the biggest employers. And they provide about 70% of Jackson County's employment. Next slide. So let's see. Can you skip that slide as well, Rich? And the next one. And yeah, so that was the research. I'm sorry. I kind of got rid of some things. Next slide. All right. Back on track. I'm trying to pay attention, but watching people too. And if there is a problem, please raise your hand or tell me, So when it comes to recommendations, I just wanted to give you a general idea of the type of data and information we collected.
Hey, Arthur?
Yeah.
Give us just a second, if you would, please. I think, Mr. Woody, you had a question.
Well,
Okay.
I did read this before, and I don't know if there was a reason you skipped that one, but when it looked at the what I think you called the deficit. Oh, it's not on here. Oh, you took the ones out, I see. Well, there was one of the comments on that page, Dr. Salido, about what they saw as deficits in Jackson County was shopping opportunities or retail opportunities.
Correct.
And I wondered with COVID, from what my understanding is, so many people have gone to shopping online that I wonder if that would still be considered a deficit when, and maybe it would be, I know that we've gotten a lot more restaurants since COVID. We've had several open up. But as far as retail stores, that's not the case. But my understanding is that they closed mainly because of online shopping. Is that still a concern then?
So Arthur, I'll try to answer that. So retail in general, in terms of big box, mom and pop retail goods and services, those things were challenged prior to COVID.
Yes.
And mostly because of online shopping. But I think the challenge we have here still exists, that people want to live in an area where they feel like they've got a wide variety of goods and services that are at their disposal. And we don't have to look any further here than the fact that much to my chagrin and 7+ years later into my role, we still don't have our new Ingles supermarket.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
And so we leak a lot of dollars into surrounding counties because people want to go and have what they perceive as a better shopping experience for just purchasing groceries. So now if you look that across any type of retail trades, et cetera, you still see that the opportunities are there for dollars to be going outside of Jackson County. It would be to our advantage if we can ever get to the point to vary our retail profile even greater and more in depth. So I would tell you that is still a concern.
Yeah, thank you. That clarifies for me. I appreciate it.
And I think I kind of remember the conversation around that as well. And Rich may have just mentioned it, but some of the concern was big box, like appliances and things that maybe you don't order online, but you need to go and see them and measure them, see if it's going to fit in your house. So that's part of it as well. All right. Well, thank you for that question, Chairman Woody. And if there are anything else, please let me know. So in terms of recommendations, I just wanted to stress that we were really focusing on, from Rich's direction, the Jackson County Land Use Plan 2040, which was passed in June of 2017. There were 8 goals that we focused on that were focused on economic development. So that's where we paid attention. And what you're going to see in the following slides are not every initiative that we propose, but just some samples for each of the 8 goals. And you obviously have the report there, so please refer to that for the context and background that is attached to each of those initiatives. We really do believe that these initiatives are steps to raise Jackson County's profile even more by engaging tourists and new residents and investors, developers, and target industries. And I'll stop after each goal to make sure that I get the questions. And if Rich, you have anything to add as well.
Hey, Arthur, we're going to get pushed for time.
Okay.
Make sure as we're going through, we're hitting the highlights here, and then certainly we'll stop and make sure everyone is understanding of what they've heard.
All right. Thank you. Well, goal number 1 was maintaining a robust and sustainable tourism destination. So I'll just hit a couple of these things. It was recommended by focus groups and then other information about establishing or enhancing a regional tourism committee to foster collaborative discussion and planning around regional tourism. So the TDA, Western, Southwestern, SBTDC, and the Small Business Center and Chambers could be great partners for that. Another initiative was evaluating the need for additional accommodations or even a conference facility, and then undertaking a retail study to identify additional retail needs or maybe gaps across the county. And then lastly, improving access to amenities and features like improving river access or parks, picnic areas, and so on. Next slide. Goal number 2 was building a workforce that will meet the needs of current and future employers. And so, focus groups really pointed out that the county is home to high quality education and many highly skilled second home residents and retirees. Some of the suggestions focused on, helping elementary through higher ed students with facility tours, job shadowing, internships and apprenticeships. Maybe with the younger kids focusing on a growth mindset and helping these students understand skills and developing the workforce that's really relevant in the county. Another suggestion was looking at employer facilitated childcare. So Family Forward North Carolina has some recommendations, and they're a great organization that helps companies help their workforce in taking care of childcare issues. And then we thought Western and Southwestern could continue to offer certificates, credentials, and training that were relevant to the workforce in the county. And then lastly, transportation's a big deal. And we talked about having, for example, the resort community work with the county to develop transit or ride sharing opportunities to get the workforce to the jobs that are there. Next slide. The Mountain West Partnership, which Rich has chaired for many years, has done an awesome job identifying broadband issues throughout the county. In 2017, the Mountain West Partnership hosted a broadband summit, and a lot of good actions and recommendations came out of that. So some of our recommendations are similar. The WNC Broadband Project, which is headquartered in Buncombe County, but it covers the western North Carolina counties, roughly 23. They have some really good suggestions for counties in advocating for broadband and assisting deployment and implementation. I put a few of those in the report, or we did. Also convening a new digital inclusion committee to further the progress of previous groups and initiatives. We thought that using this to foster a collaborative discussion between ISPs, cell service providers, the local government, local leaders would be really important. And then we also thought about the revolving loan fund and, figuring out ways that can be redirected toward broadband related priorities since it's such an important resource for the county. Next slide. So economic development. So creating a marketing campaign to support existing business and attract new business. So as you know, economic development depends on new business recruitment, business retention and expansion, and then small business support and entrepreneurship. So, we know there's a lot of challenges in the county toward meeting these three goals, but the 7 western counties and the eastern band of Cherokee Indians have done an awesome job with partnering together and working together. And so focus groups also suggested about creating a regional brand, something that will connect and help coordinate and collaborate the counties together. Outdoor recreation is a good example. So in 2019, the Mountain West Partnership sent a regional representative to the Summer Outdoor Retailer in Denver. They sponsored the Outdoor Economy Conference when it originated in Western, and I think in a subsequent year or two. I think the regional economic developers understand that outdoor recreation, hospitality, and tourism are all important to the health and wellness of economic development, business creation in the region. Some of the suggestions are as simple as refreshing the economic development website for the county, promoting new product opportunities, and developing a plan to ensure that the website stays current. Placing a high priority on expanding economic development, and then maintaining an up-to-date searchable online database of available buildings and sites. Next slide. So goal number 5 was identifying investment opportunities to address current and future critical economic needs. So some of the focus groups and other stakeholders, they cited lack of affordable and developable land, and then limited housing opportunities as key challenges in Jackson County's economic and community development. So some of the initiatives that we proposed were, really looking at the land use plan, which emphasized the critical need for affordable and developable land. We understand there are no easy solutions, but working with landowners, creating a product development team in the county that will proactively meet one-on-one with property owners, understanding their needs and desires, understanding the sites, and using that information to promote increasing commercial and business activity in the area. Trying to pursue public-private partnerships with these landowners, and then coming up with ways to increase the availability and being ready when the opportunity arises. Coordinating with local realtors and realtor associations. Also, evaluating the adequacy of all utility services, such as water, sewer, and electricity, but also broadband and natural gas to support growth and development in targeted areas. Next slide. Stakeholders and focus groups recommended that Jackson County should create a small business and entrepreneurial hub in downtown Silva, which would support goal number 6 of becoming an entrepreneurial and small business capital. And this makes sense because Silva is the population center of the county and, roughly speaking, the geographic center of Western North Carolina. Supporting entrepreneurship and startups will be increasingly important given national difficulties recruiting businesses to rural areas, and maybe the pandemic's negative impact on existing firms. So, co-locating, it leverages the strengths of service providers like the Small Business Center, the SBTDC, and other support organizations. If they could be housed there, it could be an opportunity for the town and the county to provide broadband access that would foster a collaboration between education partners, and it would recruit businesses like IT who want the quality of life and just need an internet hookup. So that small business hub would be great. Developing a plan that focuses on retaining small businesses. So, coordinating businesses, having regular discussions, understanding their needs, their desires, assisting with succession planning, and aligning business support resources with community needs, engaging the chambers of commerce and local business owners in those discussions. And then lastly, coordinating with Western and Southwestern to develop comprehensive entrepreneurial resources and programs designed to attract new businesses and support businesses. Next slide. Also, goal number 7, maintaining a comprehensive economic development strategy. So this goes back to just making sure the CEDS is reviewed, that it's reviewed with you, the county commissioners, a few times a year, maybe at least twice per year, and then annual updates that are reported. And then establishing key performance indicators that will measure that progress and the results. And then maybe soon or now, establishing the current baseline and measurements for improved performance. Next slide. And goal number 8, maintaining and enhancing quality of life for citizens, tourists, and small business owners. So quality of life was something we heard over and over again, valuing the growth in the county, but also protecting natural assets and resources. So, some of the suggestions here are around coordinating with municipalities regarding land use policies and regulations where feasible, partnering with municipalities and the Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians to balance economic development with environmental stewardship, and then expanding awareness of the Citizen Academy and using that structure to help educate and help get the word out about the goals of economic development and community development and maintaining and preserving natural resources. So next slide. So just to sum up really fast, we saw a lot of strategies around the region, and we want to make sure and hope that you'll keep this economic development strategy open and relevant, that it won't be, sitting on a shelf somewhere. It's designed, like Rich said earlier, to be really a 5-year, 7-year project. By revisiting the plan and taking annual action, we think it will remain relevant and produce its intended significant impacts. We all know that the county is growing well. With growth comes challenges, but also opportunities. And I think, when you think of when we started this process a year ago and COVID hit, it was hard to predict how that would impact the county. And as Chairman Woody said, that, there have been some positives out of that. I think this SEDS will equip you all and stakeholders with strategies and resources to tackle all of the challenging issues that ignite the changes that lead to meaningful impacts. And then lastly, I just want to acknowledge Mr. Rich Price, who's been a great person to work with. And we have really enjoyed his feedback. It's always been timely. He's always been available for discussions and questions. A special thanks goes out to the Jackson County Business and Industry Advisory Committee for serving as the oversight body for this important endeavor. Thank you to all of you for your leadership. And I want to point out Jessica Martin Lane and Jenny Mizell, my colleagues, who we were all involved in this process. So thank you very much. And I'd be glad to take some questions.
So thank you, Arthur. Finally, I'll just say this is a continuation of a roadmap. Pretty much everything that you've seen in this document in some way or another, work is already ongoing, not just out of the Office of Economic Development, but the myriad of partners that you may be aware that are working in collaboration that were discussed here. We feel strongly that this document provides proper vision and guidance for not only the individual that will step into this role going forward, but also allows them the necessary partnerships to keep the focus on a strong and growing, smartly growing economy here in Jackson County. So with that, if we have time for some questions or darts or whatever you want to throw, I'm happy to field those.
Any questions?
Dr. Salido, Voice News.
Chairman Dietz.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you, sir.
What would be the 2 top strategies of all you talked about the last 10 years?
Well, that's a great question. I think out of the focus groups and the conversations we had, thinking regionally, and this is maybe my opinion, but for once one of the participants mentioned that when you do a search of the Great Smoky Mountains, all that comes up is Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg and Tennessee related results. And I think that's a missed opportunity. Jackson County has has great natural resources, but so does Macon County and Swain and Graham. So maybe thinking regionally. We also recommended, and I was trying to go fast because I don't want to take up too much of your time, but doing a supply chain study of what's moving through the county, what's growing in the region that maybe the county can participate in. Those are just two on the top of my head.
Other questions or comments?
So, Mr. Chairman, as I said, this comes with the recommendation of business and industry for you folks to adopt as you see readily or ready to do.
Okay.
And I thank you very much for your time.
Good, thank you.
So just follow up too, just to make sure everybody's clear, that presentation was a PowerPoint presentation about Withers Ravenel. Included in your package also is the actual plan itself. And I do recommend, that's under 1B, I do recommend if you haven't already done so, to go through and read it. And again, read the entire document. But the reality is this really does go into a little bit more depth in regards to all of these goals that we just discussed with you. So obviously, I'm not going to try to go through this entire document with you. But if you will bear with me, I just want to give you, for example, and you heard Mr. Price refer to this a little bit, where he had to update some items in regards to tourism and the TDA. But ultimately, you can see maintain goal 1, a robust and sustainable tourism destination. This gets into some specifics items, and if you scroll down to page 12, you can see it has action items, it has partners, it has time frames in regards to when these items should be completed. So, for example, I'll skip past tourism and just jump to, and bear with us, I know build a workforce that will meet the needs of current and future employers. Again, it has specific action items, it has lead agencies, has partners, and time frame in which these things to be looked at and accomplished. So I want to focus everybody, there's a lot of good data in this document, this 54-page document in regards to census data and demographics and things of that nature. But I also want to just lead you directly to the action items, potential partnerships, and things of that nature. Because to me, that's the need of this document, correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct.
And that's where I hope everybody focuses on if they have any future questions.
And as I indicated to Mr. Adams yesterday in our last final update meeting, I will remain available to certainly assist whomever steps into this role from my new perch up the street in Cullowhee, because I have a vested interest not only as somebody who's put a lot of work into this, but also I'm still a resident of Jackson County and I want to see good things happen for this community. So I'm delighted to stay engaged however I can. So, thank you for your time. Arthur, thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Thank you, all of you, county commissioners. I thank you for the opportunity, all of us at Withers Revenue.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Adams, I know that it's been requested that we adopt this document. I don't guess we're under any kind of time frame. We could, I guess if the board so chooses, we could put it on the next agenda. Would that give us enough time to complete a thorough read through, then be in a position to adopt it? Anybody object to that, or do we need more time? That'd be next Tuesday.
I don't have any problem with it.
Okay.
Talk low.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem with
What?
it. A year from now, where will we be on this? Are they a goal for years now? That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Well, or is this just something we're going to vote on, and this is a good idea? Whatever.
It's on the shelf.
So we're actually gonna have a conversation a little bit about that topic later today in regards to what you're looking for out of your economic development position and also the department itself. But, you know, plan is only, as you're looking at, only as good as those you try to implement. And so if the board adopts it, I would attempt to treat it like we've done with our 2017 comprehensive plan. And ultimately, as a manager, I would look, the reason I was trying to point out that there are lead agencies and then there's partnership, I would look for those lead agencies to try to take steps towards those goals. So just like our 2017 plan, we've actually gotten quite a bit of that accomplished, and some of it we haven't. And that's the only thing I can tell you that we can try to do with this plan also, is to try to encourage the different lead agencies to continue forward with this plan. And I think an economic development department, however we proceed forward with that conversation, is going to play a vital role.
But much of that, you look at there, it's very comprehensive. Steps to detail. But there's hardly anything there that we haven't all realized. The importance of it. After we ended, things big, Blue Ridge Parkway, Facebook, that nice park, our natural resources, railroad, which we've done a great job of coming nothing to a whole lot as far as using paddling and fishing and whatever. But there's a lot there, and all of it has been mentioned is improved. That's what I'm saying. Hopefully I should know in a year ago. See some improvement in that.
no, I agree, and it's a good point. And I'm glad you raised the question and make the point, because it is a plan, and it's not worth its weight in paper if we just put it on a shelf and don't do it.
That's right. That's
A
right.
lot of people spend a lot of time, a lot of work to get to where we're at today. And I guess I'm just wanting to make sure that we were comfortable moving forward with the first big step, which would be adopt the plan. And then if, as we look, I'll just flip through these action items on the various charts throughout the document. Without exception to just a few locations, the vast majority of these action items, the lead agency tasked with oversight and pulling these partners together is the Office of Economic Development in Jackson County. So, in which we're getting ready to have a vacancy, in which we're going to talk about today, the first discussions about filling. So I think, yeah, we could go ahead and adopt this, but it's going to be, if we're serious about this, then whomever is going to be the new economic development director is going to have a huge responsibility to take this and run with it, and to try to pull all these people together and hopefully check off goal one by one and try to make some successes. That's what I would hope.
And this is Jessica, if I can chime in for just a second.
Okay.
If you, I think it was goal number 7, and also in the report, there, we built into the process the opportunity for this to come back in front of the board every year so that you guys are able to tweak it accordingly. Because, what we all learned this year is that we just really don't know what to expect anymore with with the pandemic and the economy and things of that nature, and times were really uncertain. And so we built into the plan a process for you guys to revisit this annually and go through and not only update it, but also adjust timeframes, adjust goals, adjust action initiatives so that it is a living and breathing plan that meets the county's goals and objectives.
Thank you for that. That's very important. Commissioner Woody?
Yes, and I also appreciate the work that obviously is put into this. One of the things I noticed in just reading, I haven't read the whole plan, but in reading the PowerPoint presentation previous to the meeting and then seeing it again was that the two main things that jump out at me are broadband and affordable housing. And on the statewide level, our Association of County Commissioners, this has come up at the Southwest Commission meeting, talking about goals moving forward, broadband, affordable housing. It just keeps coming up consistently. And those are two, I think, pillars, if you want to use that word, or foundational issues that we are addressing. I mean, we've talked about it, we're moving forward in some of this, but to be able to do these other things, we've got to have that first. And I think the COVID has shown that when people wanted to find a place that was safe to come to and beautiful and accommodating, our Airbnb and all those things just went through the roof during COVID. I mean, weren't they the highest they've ever been? And we're not pigeon forged, nor do we want to be. But we're doing really well, I think, with some of those things. And then what we've got to do is make sure that we, like Commissioner Dietz was saying and Commissioner McMahon, that we keep true to the beauty and integrity of our county and our environment while we do these things.
Sure. Any other comments or questions? So is a consensus, or we won't try to vote on this, go ahead and put it on the agenda for next Tuesday? Anybody object to that? Okay, next item.
This is the item, next item is a previously discussed item of the board. This is in regards to Dr. Killian Road, the abandonment of a portion of the road and adding it back. And I'll put it over to Mr. Poston to go into detail. One of these attachments.
Do you want to go to the map? That might be the best place to start. Yes, Crystal. So I'll start. I know that Commissioner Jones and Commissioner Stribling were not commissioners when we first went over this item back in the summertime. The reason why this item comes to the Board of Commissioners is there's a state statute that requires that anytime DOT wants to abandon a right-of-way, they need to get a resolution, a recommendation from that county that the state road is in. So DOT received a request as a part of the Millennial Campus apartment complex to relocate State Road 1331, which is Dr. Killian Road. And on the map, you can see how that realignment actually took shape. You can see the old road bed and now the new road bed as well, where the new road was placed.
So just for a point of reference, the old road bed, the new road bed is highlighted. Is that correct?
Is that is the new alignment as shown. And so what the petitioner in this case, which was the university, requested from NCDOT that they abandon that old right-of-way and then establish maintenance on the new alignment of Dr. Killian Road. So I think that Chris Lee, who is our district engineer from NCDOT, is here today he has requested that the county consider supporting a resolution that would abandon the old right-of-way and accept the new right-of-way into the state maintenance system. Ultimately, the decision resides with the Board of Transportation at the state level, but they require a resolution from the county. So we're here today just to talk about where we're at with that. At the meeting, at the work session we came to during the summer, the roadway had not been completed and been able to be approved by DOT that that their basic minimum standards for the drainage ditches and the road compaction and all that. I believe what Mr. Lee will be able to state today is that that has been met at this time, and that he would like the board again and the county to reconsider adopting this resolution. So I'll turn it over to Chris. Chris, do you have anything to add?
That's exactly right, Mike. You explained it well, and I appreciate the commissioners considering this resolution. And this is really just a follow-up from that request we had back last summer, late summer, to kind of complete this transaction. It's kind of just a formal process we go through to relinquish that old right-of-way and establish a new right-of-way. The road length really hasn't changed any. We had tabled it at that time because of some unfinished business. Basically, there was pavement that was not complete. There was a turnaround that was not complete at the end of the road. And I think Chairman Dietz had some concerns about the drainage, and how well that was functioning. And so I can report now, I had a final inspection out there early in January with the developer and their engineer, who had done most of the site work, and all the items that were incomplete back at late summer are now complete and they're functioning. And I felt like we had reached a point where all the items are functioning as designed. And it was time to move ahead with this request to seek the resolution and present this to the Board of Transportation in Raleigh. And if anyone has any questions about anything they see in the letter or documents I've provided to Mike, I'll be glad to answer those.
Mr. Chairman, and if there's any questions of the board, we'll gladly answer those. One other thing that I'll point out is part of what staff does in reviewing any of these types of resolutions is we look at whether or not ingress or egress gets adversely impacted for any of the property owners. We have completed that review with DOT's ability to state that road will meet their standards. We believe that from a staff point of view that no ingress or egress will be negatively impacted by this request.
Okay. Any questions for these gentlemen?
So, Chris, just want to make sure the resolution I have on the board, like this, is basically the main item that we give before the board for approval.
Correct. And basically what this resolution states is that the board supports the abandonment of the existing right-of-way and the acceptance of the new alignment into the state maintenance system.
Is that a paved road?
It is, and Chris could probably tell you a little bit better about all the details of it. But Chris, it is a paved road that meets current NCDOT standards. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
What do y'all plan on doing with the road itself? Are they y'all gonna mill the asphalt up and retrieve the gravel from underneath, or just totally abandon the road?
So
Yeah.
the roadway, the old alignment was a part of the campus, the apartment construction project. So it's already been integrated into the parking lots and the site. So it no longer exists as a road. And when at the time they were doing that, they established the new road. And what was lacking back in the summer was the final portions of the punch list that Chris had given them about, pavement being correct, turnarounds being in place, drainage working appropriately. And so that new purple line that you see on Dr. Fillion Road, that is the new alignment. What the 2009 or probably 2018 or 19 aerial does not show you is that area where the old roadbed is now part of the apartment complex that resides there today. That's all. That's all parking lot and building.
Millennials.
Ordinance are ready.
Yeah. Yeah, in that white circle that you see is that parking lot and roadway that goes around the build out.
Okay.
It's already been destroyed and washed away.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, that road goes out there and it just dead ends, does it not?
It does, sir. It dead ends at a gate that is the entrance to.
Aren't they a Jeep road or something that goes all through there?
Correct.
They need to update their aerial.
Yeah.
Well, lots of.
I said it just dead ends, it's maintained to that big gate, is that right?
Yeah, I'm having a hard time with the audio, but I hope you can hear me okay. The road does dead end at a turnaround that we require the developer to construct. However, and then there's a gate, and that gate leads into just a little beyond where Mike's pointer is. There's a gate that leads into WCU's body farm, which is on out the road. The actual end of state maintenance is about where you see the line end, well into into the body farm and off your screen there. So the road there's quite a bit more state road out there, but it was unaffected by the developer's new footprint.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody object to putting this on the agenda for the next meeting?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay. All right, we'll put it on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
The next item of discussion is an item that I'm actually not going to request action on from the board, but I will go ahead and provide this update to the board. I was going to point out at the previous economic development strategy plan, they do identify Mountain BizWorks as one of our lending sources for our small businesses. And just a reminder to the board, the Jackson County set aside funding to be made available to businesses who had a need for revenue to call. And so far, the funds that have been loaned out, you can see the total applications were 13, approved funds were 5, loss obviously declined was 8. And you can see total approved fund that was $50,000, total job retained was 29. And as far as minority business participation, you see the number 4. And you also can see the breakdown of these stats as far as the percentage 1 to 5 employees, 60%, 6 to 10, 20%, 11 to 20, 20%. So the total fund size is $324,000. We still have $274,000 available. And what I would like to do, at one point, I was going to have a discussion with the board about updating our agreement with Mountain BizWorks, but I would request that we just wait until we proceed forward with adoption of this plan, how we'll proceed forward with the economic developer.
Okay.
We want to take a break.
Yeah, let's take a 10-minute break.
Oh.
Mark, I want to tell you one thing later.
Okay, we'll come back to order.
Okay. Next item of discussion is which is following up with, we did provide the board with information regarding the Director of Economic Development position. We also do have Ms. Breedlove sitting in the back here, our Human Resources Director. And it's my understanding that the board wishes to discuss just the ongoing, the existing job description and are there any other items that the board wishes to discuss about this position and what they think their responsibilities? Having said that, Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to the board for general discussion. Again, you do have the job description itself. The other item is, this is just normal advertisement for a position that you choose to move forward. And then finally, this is just another, we decided to do a range. Currently, what we've been doing when we advertise these positions, we advertise them up to step 12, because that's what, at this point, I'm the manager's authorized to go to. And so having said that, though, I think the initial appropriate conversation should revolve around the job description itself.
Okay. Commissioner Jones, I'll recognize you first. I know you were the one that had requested that we take a look at this item and give you a chance to share some thoughts.
Thank you. I think Wiggins Revenue report that we had just a few moments ago on their goal 4, it had this component in it. And goal 4 was to create a marketing campaign to support existing businesses and attract new businesses. To support and expand our existing businesses, I just think it should be a priority, as well as recruiting other business, but we've got these businesses already here. Let's put, I'd just like to see that component, that Wiggins Revenue as something that is written into our requirements. Or job duty, job functions.
Well, one of the things, I think that's a great point, and obviously that goal is a goal that I think all of us support. What if this, when I was looking at this, I guess this is 3B, the employment job listing. Is that the one I'm looking at, 3B? Yes, that one. And it talks about, I think the sort of the focus of what this person does when someone reads this, it's going to be the description of duties and responsibilities.
Mr. Chairman, are you on 3B1, 2, or 3?
I think I was on the one you was just on the screen with, that B3.
That has the range of money.
Does it have a range? Yes, it does. Yeah. Yeah. Just looking at it's a pretty broad defined group of job. I guess what we're hoping that someone in this position will do. Do we want to add to this? I mean, is it vague enough? Is it broad enough that it's understand that when they're directing the operations economic development department, that they're going to be undertaking this work that you're talking about? Do we reference the Jackson County, what do we call it? SEDS, yeah. Do we make that one of the objectives as this person's job is to move forward with the implementation of the Jackson County SEDS?
I think you could easily put it, I think you could easily put it on, this is an advertisement, and I think you could easily put it in that advertisement, you expect it to follow through with the recently adopted.
Yeah.
2000.
And that would cover that 1 point plus all those others.
Yes.
That's a good one.
I agree with that.
And then as far as a concentration, if that's specifically, say, Commissioner Jones, what you're looking for, I think once somebody's hired, I think then then there's direction given to that individual that we want you to concentrate on everything, but we obviously would like for you to report back to the board with progress. And then you would just indicate to this individual your specific interest in this plan.
Will the board be part of the hiring process, or that be personnel in your office?
I think ultimately that's what's going to be discussed coming up in regards to how the board wishes to proceed. You know, ultimately this position is ultimately appointed by the board. And so there's two pathways that you can go through with this. One is that the board would take on the role of the interview process itself. And then the other pathway would be, and this is also a traditional pathway with some department heads, is that ultimately you advertise, you get your applications in, and then an interview team is created after the applications. The reason I always recommend if we go that path is waiting until after the applications, because sometimes the people you would have on the interview team, you know, and generally who you put on the interview team, you know, if it's not the board itself, who you put on the interview team is the stakeholders that this person or this department head would work with on a regular basis. So if you go back and read, you know, especially this plan, you can see who the stakeholders will be, whether it be the community college, small business center, whether it be the TDA, whether it be chambers, things of that nature, because this position relies on those partnerships to be successful. So, but what you have to do is advertise and get the applications in, because sometimes those individuals may apply. So you have to decide who the interview team would be after you receive the applications. I would think this is something that this board can continue to discuss. If the, you know, and what I mean by that is I don't think you have to wait to advertise to make the final decision on how you're going to develop an interview process. And sometimes, again, you develop the interview process based upon your applicants. And once you get the applicants in, you can choose a lot of different scenarios on how to proceed.
Well, let me come back to the first question, and I think, do we agree that that would be something that we want to add to the job advertising?
Yes.
I think it goes right to the heart of what Commissioner Dietz
Yes.
said.
Yeah.
All right,
And
I
the
agree.
Parker lady too.
because that ought to be a number one focus,
Yes.
that report.
Yes.
So if we add that, is there any other additions or any other modifications to this job description that we'd like to see?
Very good.
Okay, now going back to Mark's second question about the process, where are we at as far as advertising and this whole process to lead us to where we can make this next decision about?
We haven't advertised at this point, so what we would do is I'm gonna go back and work with Kathleen. We're gonna add that extra sentence in there, and then.
Do we need to approve it as a board?
I don't think so. I mean, unless
Okay.
you choose to do so, I think we can add that in there
Okay.
on our own. But we held off advertising for the position because we weren't sure what the results of this conversation would be. So next steps for us, if it's okay with the board, is, and consensus would do, is for us to just go through and advertise. And once we get the applications in, you know, in the next couple of weeks, we can just go back in a closed session and discuss what the process would be to interview, if that's okay with the board.
Is that okay with everyone?
Yes, sounds good.
Okay, well, if y'all make the changes, and
Let me,
go ahead, Commissioner Dietz.
you know, when you look at this description of duties, responsibilities, that's a lot of duties and responsibilities. A lot of it.
Yes.
And you look at this, that's almost scary sometimes, which that is good. Some of that deals with this. But do we need to be specific in the way here's 4 things that we're really wanting to see happen. Or are we just saying, this is what we want to see. We want you to do that paragraph right there with all those things, and this right here is what we want you to do. you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If you go into, I had the opportunity when I worked with another feller to go in a lot of counties where they had folks that did this type job, would be bunkum making, whatever. It seemed like when we got there after, once that fella's hired, he just kind of, which I don't know if that's not bad, if it's bad, but there's so much to do, he just kind of found a direction he wanted to go and kind of went almost that way himself. You understand?
yeah. And I'll tell you, my opinion, it's just personally, there are some government jurisdictions who try to take these positions and do sort of like what you're talking, I believe what you're talking about, where you say, we want you to produce these results. It's almost a performance-based measure. If you produce these results, then you get to keep your position or you justify your job. And if you don't meet these results, then you're out. And that, in some cases, in some jobs, I think that's okay. But this is one of those jobs where, I mean, I've been a commissioner several years. And you see, economic development is something that it's a hit and miss. I mean, you're just throwing it at the wall, hoping something's going to stick. And sometimes it works and sometimes it don't work. And so I think we just have to be careful that we are putting goals and objectives out there that are achievable, because it's one thing to say we want affordable housing, but we know how hard that is. We don't even know how to define it, let alone how to achieve it sometimes. So it's a huge job, like you said, it's a huge, huge job. And I just think we need to be real careful that we don't assign goals and objectives that aren't attainable and that their job be conditioned on attaining them.
Mr. Chairman, I agree with you 100%. But if there is something that all five of us or something look at and say, not that you should tell this person, we've got to have this done. But and I don't know what it is right this moment, but if there's something that we all feel pretty strong about, we need this person to work on.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I agree with that. Other thoughts or questions about the economic development position, the job description, the process? So we're looking at ballpark time frame. If you all make these revisions this week, you start advertising a couple of weeks, a month to advertise. I don't know how long.
If you don't mind, I'm gonna bring.
Yeah.
Kathleen, what's the standard?
What? Yeah, give us a.
Well, I would probably advertise through either the 9th or the 8th of March, that month, and do an advertisement on CCC county lines. We can also do it on governmentjobs.com. And I don't know if you're going to require a certification for this, but the certification courses that Rich went through, he didn't sit for the exam, but 40% of the people that do take that class and sit for the exam, only 40% actually pass the exam. So it's pretty rigid. I would think our salaries probably would fit in that category of people that are certified.
So we're gonna.
She said 3% pass.
The education experience listed on here is what we're gonna go with. So we're just trying to get a timing. So basically.
Mid-March, we might be through.
Kathleen's right. We should start interviewing sometime in March.
Okay. So we get to mid-March, we go through a couple of weeks of interviews, depending on scheduling, offer someone a position. So, I mean, realistically, by the time they accept, and they may have a notice to work somewhere else. I mean, we're looking May. I mean,
Or it could go faster.
could be. I'm
Yeah.
just trying to be.
Sure.
First step is send out the advertisement. We'll move forward, and this will be something that as a board, we'll have more conversations about the actual selection process. Because there are multiple ways you can go through this type of process.
Well, we'll wait to hear back.
We're gonna go ahead and advertise. We'll set up the range and so forth as far as how long we're gonna, collect the applications. We are gonna add the additional statement referring to our SEDS in regards to that being a responsibility to follow through with. And then we'll just continue these conversations in future meetings. Okay?
Yeah.
You ready?
Yes.
Next item is just, again, discussing with the board our upcoming meeting schedule. Just a reminder, we do have conflicts with the days that are listed on this memo. But basically, the conflict is we do have court days in this facility or in this room. And, obviously, we've moved our next Tuesday meeting, just a reminder, the 16th is now moved to 6 p.m. And the reason I needed the board to act last week is so that your clerk could appropriately advertise and let everybody know that the time has changed. So now we're looking to see, I'm asking what the board would like to do on these remaining dates in March and April and May in regards to these 1 p.m. meetings.
So all those that's listed in this little table, the 2 in April and the 2 additional in May are all conflicts that we would need to either reschedule that evening or find an alternate location.
That is correct. And that includes the March. So the simple thing, if you do evenings here, then there is no conflict, but if we need to find an alternative site, then just let us know.
Okay.
Evenings are fine for me, but I'm flexible.
Does that work? That's the easiest choice,
It
is just
is.
to move it to the evenings.
Yeah.
Does that conflict with anybody's schedule? Mark, I know you're still working.
I'll make it work.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. All right. You can make it work. I mean, all right, well, let's just do that then for the time being. And
Okay, so I'll put this on the Tuesday agenda for the board to vote to change the times.
And I mentioned the new, as we say new, it's remodeled health department building. Is there space there that we could utilize from a board perspective? We've gone to the Department on Aging and utilizing, of course, right now with all the vaccinations going on out there, we don't want to be out there adding any more.
That's going to be, that would be a conflict. It would be hard for us to, we are going to be meeting or having vaccinations on Tuesdays. So that would be a conflict. The health department does have a big enough room, but it is upstairs and towards the back of the building. So I don't know convenience wise for public, but if we were to.
Well, there's no public here now, so.
But if we were to make it if we were to put everything online, if there is a big enough room for the board to meet there. Yes.
Talking about that classroom?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good sized room.
Let's evaluate that option and from a technology standpoint and see how it works for Angie and staff and that might be something that we go ahead and schedule these, but the court calendar is going to run far beyond May.
Mm-hmm.
But that might help out in the future. We reassess in May.
Well, the board hasn't decided yet. So the thing is I know we make it work. If there's 1 or 2 of these dates that if we wanted to try to find an alternative location, we still have time to do that within these dates also. I guess it's not, you go back and look at it and let me know let us know before Tuesday. Because we could either do that. I was looking at, we're going to have our retreat at the Borough Building at SEC. And then we also have a community room at the library. So there are alternative locations. If we did mix it up, I'd love for it to be a mix of some at night here and just a couple off-site if that's what the board wanted to do.
Okay.
But yes, I'll investigate that.
the December 5th organizational meeting, I was quarantined at the time, so I was zoomed in. Was that the first time you all used the library? I've always wanted to do a commission meeting at the old courtroom. Or the
Yeah.
public, just for historical
You got sworn in.
value.
Mhm.
Grandmother spent a lot of time up there.
The only problem with that room is the screen is behind us and we couldn't
Yes.
see you.
Yeah.
But we'd have to try to do some, I'd like to, if we're gonna have presentations like today, there's no way
Yeah.
that, you know, we all of us have to turn around just to be able to see the presentation or see the speakers.
Unless we set up on the side.
Yeah, unless we
But that-
change the seating and change it
yeah,
around.
But then,
But yeah, evaluate some options.
Okay. So at this point, I've worked with this on Tuesday agenda, unless there's other options, these will be switched tonight, but then we'll evaluate other options.
I'll just make one comment, that Angie had worked so hard at my request to schedule a meeting in the Wolftown community. And then she had worked so hard to do that, and then COVID hit and we
Yeah.
never got to, but she did go above and beyond trying to find a location there.
And maybe how often, I know we try to make a point of having meetings, commission meetings in various parts of
Yes,
the county. That's just reminding me, we've had one at Savannah Fire Department, Balsam Fire Department. It seems like the Cashers.
Cashers, yeah.
Rec Center. Has there been a routine, like once every 6 months, a time period that you shop for?
At one point, our goal was once a quarter,
That's what
yeah,
but
it's kind of,
it's hit and miss because of the schedule, and some things require us to be here for certain types of presentations. And then COVID hit and it just killed all of it.
I hear you. It'd be nice to get on some
Yeah.
type of schedule again.
when we can.
All right.
I can tell the board that it's something I was gonna talk to you a little bit later, but, we do have if you go back to our budget calendar, we do have a March revenue meeting scheduled. And that revenue meeting is gonna be to discuss revaluation, but to also discuss the Coley Volunteer Fire Department and also the Cashers Fire Department, for them to come and talk to you about the existing fire tax and then also what Coley is wanting to do. And I've been talking to representatives of the Coley Volunteer Fire Department, and they have a nice meeting room also.
Yes.
And so I thought that I was gonna see if the board had any interest in meeting in their new firehouse. And we're gonna do that in March, so I just thought I'd say that.
Yeah, that'd be good.
And they do have apparently a fairly large room with all the technology and everything with it. Next item is legal update. Jackson County Administrator.
Go ahead and move here and so others can see me. So a couple of meetings ago, you asked me to do further research on how Jackson County was named and what it would take to go forward on the request from the tribe with the resolution that they presented. So I did some research of it. It was very interesting. Went back into the North Carolina legislation. Well, and first I should say I enlisted the help of Tracy Fitzmaurice, Jackson County librarian, and Miss Buchanan from Western Carolina's library as well. Everybody went back to the history of Jackson County. I have it as well. We all started here, and it was interesting. And we found the 1850-51 session law that where Jackson County was created. The law itself mentions nothing about how the name came about. So I went in and actually found they call it the Journal of the Senate, the Journal of the House of Commons. If you're interested, it is online. The pages look like this. They are brown and typeset, but you can find it and you have to go through it. It takes a while. And I found both from the House of Senate from 1850 and 51 and the House of Commons from the same session where they talked about it being introduced. Basically, the journal is the minutes of the legislature from that time. And it mentions it several times. It was brought up. It talks about where the bill was introduced. It never once mentioned where the name came from. It just talks about the boundary, part of Haywood and Macon County. There was some discussion about the boundary and some other parts of that. And it goes on to create it. Of course, the bill is in a separate book, the House of, or the session laws from that time, but it does not mention it. So as Chairman McMahon had pointed out, in the history of Jackson County, it goes on to talk about how then the town of Webster was formed as the county seat, and it was named for Daniel Webster because, and it talks about in this book how Jackson County was named for Andrew Jackson, and then Webster was named for Daniel Webster of the other party at the time, and that was actually suggested by the father of the first sheriff of Jackson County. But that section is not in quotes and there's no resource given. So I went into the 1852 legislature and I found the bill. It's actually very interesting. It's a supplemental bill that created Jackson County. And what happened is in the original bill, they failed to include information about how to create a county seat or government. I'm sorry, not government, but the court. And there are a couple other things in there that they just left out. So in 1852, they voted to repeal and ultimately amend the law and had a supplemental law that then included all of those things. And that included creating the District of Webster, or what would become the town of Webster as a county seat. So again, I went into that legislation and the journals for 1852, found all of that. It's fascinating reading. I saw, same session in 1850 and 51, they were creating Charlotte, the city of Charlotte. And there were some other references in there that were pretty neat, but no mention of where the name came from. So just a couple other points. So I did speak with Karen Melangi at the School of Government. We had our county attorneys conference last week. And as moderator for that conference, I had a couple opportunities to speak with her. And so I discussed this with her. And she agreed with my assessment. There's really nothing in the legislature we need to do. It's up to you if you want to move forward on that, how you want to do that. Is it by resolution? What you would want to do. So options are open. Also, the resolution that was presented to you from the tribe also has a section that says, be it further resolved that the tribe, through its executive branch division, shall undertake the legal and cultural research necessary to give direction and effect to this intent. So I did reach out to the Attorney General's office connection there, and I have a meeting tomorrow with a couple members of the executive branch and Attorney General's office just to see what they had, if they had something different than what we've collected. I don't believe so, but I do have that virtual meeting with them tomorrow morning.
And just, I'll personally say, I appreciate all this hard work and research.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting, and I think it gives, this is just the first of what we'll find out, and we probably ought to look at this again at our next work session, and that way we can have some updates as to what you've had in the coming weeks to come, meeting wise. I also thought it's interesting, the resolution from Cherokee never really asks us to do anything, does it?
It doesn't. They're looking to move forward with what it asks for. Yeah, approve the intent to change the name associated with Jackson County. Yeah. But it doesn't.
But it
direct
doesn't say, it's not a
to the county.
resolution to the Jackson County Board of Commissioners asking us to do that.
Correct.
And did Cherokee, as a sovereign nation, have they transmitted a copy of that resolution to the state, to the legislature?
I don't know, but it's something I can ask.
That's a
tomorrow
question I
when
think we
meet with
need to
them.
know
Yeah.
is what steps have they taken asking for this action to take place, if so?
Yes, no, I'll hopefully be part of my meeting tomorrow.
And then, just sort of on a side note, I think we mentioned a little bit here the other day about names, and I mentioned some names. Names have changed here in some communities, and then there's a lot of names out there that we just absolutely have no clue where those names come from. A lot of names are folklore. A lot of names are just people say that it was named after this or that, and it may or may not have. My papa always used to kid me. He'd say, "You know why they call it balsam? Balsam?" And I said, "No, I have no clue. I thought a tree." And he'd aggravate me and he'd say, "No," said, "there's a fellow that lived up there at the gap of the mountain, had a big steer," and he'd say, "Ball, Sam, ball." And that was his story that he would tell. That's how balsam got its name. So I don't know. And it's just like when the article was written in Smoky Mountain News talking about Andrew Jackson Highway. I have never heard Andrew Jackson Highway. And Holly Kays and I had a conversation about it, and I said, "I've never heard Highway 74 running through Jackson County named Andrew Jackson Memorial Highway." She went back and researched it to make sure, and sure enough, it never has been dedicated or named that. Now, here it's been known as Great Smoky Mountains Expressway.
Right.
But now down in the eastern part of North Carolina, it was named Andrew Jackson Highway.
74.
74 was. But now, as
Okay.
far as have you ever heard, Boyce? I've never heard that reference here locally. And she couldn't find any reference to it either, so
Yeah.
she made a correction in the story. So, a lot of things are folklore. I don't have any doubt that they didn't say Andrew Jackson and Daniel Webster. It seems symbolic, or it's awful big coincidence if that's where it is, but I also think it's awful interesting that it's never recorded in the official record of the legislature.
Cashers has five reasons, ways it got its name, and most of those are folklore.
Folklore.
Everyone here, I know all five.
Well, in Colby, I know when we used to live in Colby, it was considered Valley of the Lilies, and now they don't believe that's the case. It stands for Jedakula Kolawi, place of where, isn't that, I think that's the most current I've heard after Jedakula, which the end part is Kula, Kolawi, so I don't know.
Mhm.
So that you're right. I mean, things do evolve as we get more knowledge of things.
Any other questions? I guess more to come.
Our chairman, this fellow right here, he just loves this. We could spend 3 hours here talking about it. He just loves it. I watched the board, we just went through that.
I'd love to go down there and read them myself.
Yeah.
Those old journals.
I do too, I love it, but he really loves it.
All right, thank you, Heather. Other business. I know we're gonna have closed session today, but other updates. Do you have anything else, Don?
Yeah, I did want to follow up the request to just, you requested about the here.
Yes, thank you.
So, this is a follow-up. I've had a long conversations with here and Bob Cochran in regards to, I believe this was in response to potentially what maybe had occurred from December to January in regards to the HERE program. So I'll just do a quick summary of my conversation with Mr. Cochran. Just a reminder to the board, Jackson County funded HERE about $150,825 for this current fiscal year of 2021. The primary purpose of this funding of $150,000 was two things. One was case management, then also for cold weather sheltering. Cold weather meaning in our winter months, our primary goal is that we just don't want to have anybody freeze to death out in our community over the winter months. Due to available state funding, HERE was able to operate through the month of December 2020 without any limitations. So they had, up until December, they had 44 rooms going. Now, to kind of put that in perspective, okay, when you go back to the Jackson Neighborhood Need era, you know, they were dealing in the winter months, 8 to 12 rooms. So, and through the month of December, there were 44 rooms going at that point. In the month of January, here reduced the number of available rooms to 19, okay? 15 of them being for the cold, these are motel rooms, by the way, for the cold weather shelter. And they keep 4 that they call 30-day rooms. And these are people or families that are trying to, some are just emergencies that they're trying to keep people from freezing, but they also have to have rooms for transition. And so they've got 19 rooms going now. And again, to put that also into perspective, 19 rooms, if you just do 19 rooms, not the 44 rooms, the 19 rooms over 4 months, that's $148,200. So here is going at the pace, their reduced pace, they're going at a higher pace than our funding. And that just shows that they're getting other funding associated with this for them to go at a higher rate. You know, I talked to Mr. Cochran, and here they constantly struggle. They attempt to ensure that the people served here for the emergency shelter, okay, are people who are residents or have been in Jackson County for some time. They constantly struggle with that. Mr. Cochran states that, you know, vetting is sometimes difficult, and he believes, and I think we all understand, the hotel model is a draw. It's just, I think we've all recognized that, and what we mean is it is a regional draw for a transient population, and it's just something that it just try to make, you know, everybody understands you're dealing with an emergency right then, so you can't, sometimes you have to default on the emergency and then go through and vet it a couple of days later. And, you know, so he does run into situations where, you know, he was telling me about a family from Macon and things of this nature that they just have to deal with after the fact. But because it is a motel model, it does become a regional draw, and that's just something that they consistently struggle with. You know, they do believe eventually that long-term goal is a permanent shelter. The permanent shelter will remove necessarily that regional draw, because the regional draw is staying in the hotel room, basically, is what it is. Where here is on the permanent structure conversation is, you may be reading in the newspaper, I believe it may be Beth here, that Mr. Cochran is saying has followed up with a lot of questions from the Silver Herald to him. They have released, or are going to release, a request for proposals for a feasibility study regarding a permanent homeless facility and also a capital campaign. So Bob and I talked about, he's needing to do an entire study. You can't go out and do a fundraising effort or do things of that nature unless you've got a more feasible plan in front of you. So you may hear or read about that a little bit more in the next month or two as far as just a feasibility study. I can tell you also that here is starting to expand its services, and go ahead and just plainly state, this is where you're going to have I wouldn't say competing, but multi-interest of regional services versus this local issue. Here is beginning to greatly expand its services. These will be administered on a regional basis. These programs will be focused on prevention services and rapid rehousing. So they have received, the new year is starting in January for them in this conversation, but they had received some rapid rehousing and some prevention funds last calendar year that they're currently applying for, and they feel confident they're going to get over $380,000 for these regional programs. And again, this is preventative services, rapid rehousing. These are not services that actually provide for a hotel stay. And so part of that programming they're applying for is actually coming through Via Health. Via Health it's a program they're calling Back to Home program. And again, this is all things that's going to transition some of their programming to regional programming. And then obviously at some point, we've got to relate that to what does that mean for the emergency shelter conversation. So I do know that there's been some impacts on some of our other organizations as far as trying to fundraise to help with these rooms after January 1st. But at this point, they're trying to work through, and they've transitioned down to 19 rooms, and hopefully we can get through the winter season with the funding, and everything will be okay. I will request here once they get, I was asking Mr. Cochran about when is he going to know about these regional funds? When is this broader picture going to come together after the RFP is issued and so forth? And they'll need a couple of months to go through all of that and get their funding sources in line. And that'll line up appropriately with our budget season. And at some point, I'll have them come back and do a more formal presentation to the board in regards to just this regional concept, this housing concept, and what their long-term strategy would be for a permanent shelter. That's it.
Any questions about that?
I will say, I know that here has been working really hard, and I appreciate Don bringing us that information. And no, we've had several conversations at United Christian Ministries about it because people tend to come there and seek and then have to be funneled whichever direction their needs are. And one of the issues that happens is that once those rooms, whether it was 44 rooms in December or 19 rooms in January, once those are full, there are still people. Not lots, but intermittently, there are days where there's still people that show up and there's not a room. And I know United Christian Ministries and some individuals have put people up for that night and that kind of thing. But I think one thing that I've encouraged these different agencies that have such heart to serve to do is to go back to here, because that has the case management piece. And without that, it just becomes very problematic to help these people out of this cycle of homelessness.
And I think this is good news that you're talking about on this additional money, rapid rehousing.
Yes.
And some of these other things that they're trying to bench. That is a good thing, because
yes.
that helps deal with the issue at hand or the.
Yes.
So it's more about the prevention side is, things like utility, rental, it's trying to prevent you from becoming homeless, correct? And then the rapid rehousing is, how do you get past that intermediate, you take care of the emergency need, but then right now they're dealing with it with the 30-day rooms, but then there's got to be another strategy on the rapid rehousing side of things. And so that is good news with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and the reason I had brought it up, I had got a request or a question as to, I think when the reduction took place in those room numbers, there was this belief that all of a sudden money had run out and the county was no longer funding it. And I said, that's not the case.
No.
And so I wanted to just clarify that.
If anything, they've gone at a much higher rate. The point I wanted to show about just taking the 19 rooms and doing it over the winter season, that all consumes practically all of what we've contributed to here. And the reality is, not all of that was supposed to go to rooms. It's supposed to go to case management too.
Sure.
So that just shows you that here has found other dollars above and beyond the county dollars to house people. So.
And I could be wrong, but I think that what some people mistook was the COVID money was spent, because it had to be spent, that first bid, and that ended.
See, that is the state
And
money.
some people, right,
Yeah.
and some people mistook that as our whole budget.
And that was part of their unlimited. They did have to
Exactly.
expend that by
They
December 30th, and so
Yes.
they opened there were no restrictions. They opened it up at that point with no restrictions, and that's how they increased to the 44 rooms. Sure, that was my.
Any other comments or questions? Okay. Anything else from the board members? I'll go first. Health department, I'm assuming is everything seemed to be working well? With the move in of all the staff from the various departments?
Yeah, everything is transitioned. We're still working through the punch list. So there are still items that still need to be completed with it. What we also are doing is we need to live in the building for a couple months to identify any other issues that have come up. But as far as I'm aware, the transitions happen well. Everything's functioning well. The furniture's worked out well. The vast majority of everything is working well.
Yeah, code enforcement, planning, all the other folks have moved now.
Everybody's moved in. They're out of the spaces themselves. And again, we still do have a punch out list. We still do have items. For example, the enclosure around the dumpster, and there's just still items to finish out the contract itself. But the vast majority of everything is complete. I can tell you what we did end up doing with the old temporary facility is that we still had a lot of furniture in there. And I was able to work out with Evergreen Foundation that they do not have a lessor. So as of right now, we're still working on a sale, and we're also going to try to work some things out with maybe some nonprofits for the furniture there. And in essence, we're still in that facility for utility costs. So we're not paying rent in that facility.
Okay.
But it works out. If you don't know Evergreen Foundation, they are a nonprofit entity that donates and provides grants to other nonprofit entities in our community.
Right.
So it makes you feel that some of the rent we pay to them when we're using our facility is being distributed back to our communities. And
Yeah,
so,
that's
for
good.
example, they're a fairly large funder to the homeless program.
Yes.
Itself.
Yes.
And so right now, because they don't have a renter, we just worked it out that if we maintain utilities, we've got the furniture in there. I'm going to be working this week and next week to go through a disposal process with that furniture. And honestly, what I'm attempting to do is try to work and try to benefit our nonprofit partners. Because we do partner with a lot of nonprofits, as you're aware.
Yes.
And it does fall within our ability to work with them and meet their needs. That's no different than giving them funding. And so before we do a sale, we're going to try to see if there's any furniture needs out there for nonprofits.
Okay, very good. Commissioner Deitch, you got an issue?
No.
Okay. Commissioner Woody, any additional? Any other concerns, Commissioner? Strickland? Commissioner Jones? Okay, well, we do have to go into closed session for.
Legal and personnel.
Okay. Do I have a motion to go into closed session?
So moved.
Or a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, we'll give them a chance to get the cameras all cut off and turned off, and then we'll get started in just a few minutes.
Commissioner D, could you bring me some water?
No.
By-